ended. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm really missing the snack table right about now. But I've had to keep going to my pantry, and it's just there's nothing new in there every time I go in there. So miss seeing everybody in person, but I really think Configura is got to be commended for a great event virtually. Um, a little bit about myself. Some of you may know me from past conferences or interactions, and for good or for bad. But I've been in the furniture industry for nearly a quarter century, coming up on 24 years. Been a CET designer, a strong CET designer for about 7. We had some early exposure to CET, and then we really picked up on it about 7 years ago. And actually, I did that by attending my first conference. My boss said, "We're gonna give this a go," and she thought it was a training conference, and so I signed up and went, and I learned a few things, but mostly it gave me the contacts and the confidence to come back to Boise and give it a go, and the rest is history. So to all you new users, welcome, and we're glad to have you, especially this year with over 900 attendees. That's just incredible. My current role at Business Interiors is I'm an account manager and a space planner. I'm not an interior designer. I went to school for CAD and got hired as a space planner and just stuck around ever since. Because I'm not an interior designer, probably my perspectives on the program are different than some of you guys, where I'm looking at it for production and to be quick and specific, and I'll use renderings to show for clarity and things like that, but I'm not really trying to create too many kind of show-stopping renderings and things like that. So I'm really interested in making the program quicker, better, faster, and I know that's a different perspective than some of you guys have. So it's always good to hear from other people and see what their perspective of the program is. I do want to point out this is my actual background. This is not a virtual background. Those are my wife's real plants, and so I did not chicken out and put in a virtual background like some, but hey, we all got to make our decisions in life, right? So big group for this session. Thank you for coming. I'm going to start off with just a couple here just to kind of prime the pump a little bit and give some thoughts. We can talk about some specifics, but we're trying not to like troubleshoot specific drawings. We're looking on feature requests and things like that. I've described this in the past as 3D feature request opportunity or live feature requests, and this is a great time to have a conversation for how something you think something should work, and some back and forth instead of just trying to type it up and going from there. So one of the things that probably by the end of the day will be added, because they're going to be tired of hearing about it. This is my second year of mentioning it. I'd love a text command right here, a text box, like I probably a text and not label, but I think we've all had the experience where you're drawing along and you're in your extension, and then, oh, I want to add a text, so now I got to go to CET designer tabs, now I got to go to tools, now I got to scroll down here, and now I can start typing. Whereas I'm already used to clicking up here for all my different commands, and if text was right there, that'd be great. Or give me the option to have this custom tools be a single line that I can dock and stays there, and is just not something I have to type C to open up every time. One that's come up in the past too is if you do create this custom toolbar, to be able to add individual commands to it rather than groups, that would help maybe make it a little more focused and specific to really what you're wanting to do, rather than this whole category where really you're still only looking for one things. So those are kind of, some of the ways I think of this session is to bring up ideas like that, things that could be better. And so we've got a couple questions going on here. And so let's just kick it off. I will fair warning that if you ask a question that we can't quite understand, we'll probably ask you to unmute so that you can explain it. So don't be shy with that. But we'll start out here with Sarah, and she says she'd love to be able to repeat the last command. Guys, what do you think about that?
Yeah, we got this in the last session as well. It's something that, send in a feature request about, we'll bring up as something that we heard in this meeting as well. I'm not sure if there's any reason why we wouldn't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
I wonder if the people that really look for that are CAD users that have transitioned over because they're used to being able to do that. If somebody were new to the industry and never really used AutoCAD very much, if they'd recognize that could be a good feature.
Yeah, I mean, it is in other softwares too, right? We talked about Excel having it.
Oh yeah,
so
right.
It is in other places, so there's probably a use for it somewhere.
Brenda says, hey guys, commenting on the session before this one, because she didn't get her question in. CET is great, and I am starting to love it. It takes a while. But at RSC, we specify with people all over the country, so we need to work on CAD and CAP, and some of the features being requested are doable in those. Just would love to see you take more inspiration from other software so that CET can actually be better design software, not just the visual side of things. So how do you guys, kind of, how do you determine what you're going to add? Aside from user feature requests, bigger picture, how do you guys know, okay, we want to, this needs to be part of the program, and how do you guys figure that out?
I think one of the biggest drivers is, will it keep you in the software more, right? Will it make more people use it, and taking those features, or adding functionality that at least does what those features are doing in those platforms on our platform is definitely within the roadmap as much as possible, right?
And I think today it does come a lot from the users, right? I mean, At this point we have a big user base, and we can see what people are asking for, and that does drive a lot of it. We try to be forward thinking and think about, different ways. Maybe we're not just trying to copy how everyone else has done it. How can we do it better than that? But if someone has already invented the wheel, we're not necessarily trying to reinvent it, Yep. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, is there any kind of reluctance on your guys' part to just flat copy a feature from somebody else?
It depends on what its purpose was on that platform, right? So like if we were to look at, this may not be the best example, but like this happens a lot with manufacturers where you have product that get given a part number that are basically a collection of other product, right? And you do that in CAP because CAP doesn't have a way to easily assemble that. It's not necessary in CET. And so
or you unitize things,
right? So like you need to sometimes step back and think about, why was I doing that there, or why were they able to do that, and does that even make sense on this side of the equation? Because sometimes the things that you can do on those platforms are only because of maybe things they're doing to data, beyond the manufacturer handing it off to them, or stuff like that. Who knows?
It was a workaround they found,
right,
that people just got used to.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
That doesn't make it bad. You know what
right.
I mean? Like, so,
right.
But it's something to at least, it doesn't just automatically get shoved in because XYZ had it, right?
Jody's had her hand up for a while. She must be getting tired. Olivia, you want to unmute her?
All right. Jody, you're unmuted. Yep.
Hi. I'm on the F5 user group with Chad, so you might regret unmuting me. I just have a couple things. One of them is actually coming from our design manager. She's curious if CET has like macro capability, where say every time we label something as NIC, like that label would always be gray. Like, is there any way to set up those, if I do this, then that kind of thing?
Like a Lisp routine in AutoCAD.
Yeah. Or like you do in Excel, you know, every time I type this, it comes up in that color.
Interesting. Manufacturers have added stuff like that.
Okay.
Users have not done, don't have that power necessarily.
Okay.
Outside
Then
of
why do we need
outside of,
programmers?
But this almost makes me connect to another request that was earlier, right? With the dimension styles or styles that are being applied, or categories. To styles, right? Like styles might have some, I don't know, just.
I think there's stuff we can do for some specific tools pretty easily, but something that's kind of generic, like Imagine that Lisp stuff is. I don't think we quite have that yet, but I could see that's something that we could add down the line.
Be cool
as the
too.
need grows. It would be really cool.
Yeah, and I could see like a lot of application in the material handling side.
Yeah. And then kind of along those lines, but not really, but just more like automating. You know how when you do increments, you can put prefix and suffix. I love that type of option with label as well. For example, we have an ancillary designer and then all the systems designers. And whenever we label something, you know, WSO1, we always put an S in front of it for systems. And when there's a CHO1 that's in the ancillary scope, we put an A in front of it. To be able to do that in labels would be cool.
It's interesting. There's functionality that exists in like batch rendering software, I think, that does something like this, where you create like almost an expression for your label to be adhering to as you create new files.
Okay,
and I've had thoughts like that in my head to do, why don't we have something like that? Not necessarily labeling. I've thought more on the manufacturer side with people who are needing those unique labels but can't predict how their customers are labeling them.
Yeah.
But it's interesting with the label that could tie in and maybe become something in core. Who knows?
And that kind of brings me to my next item on my list. When you're in calculations and you highlight an item and you can locate on drawing, if there would be some sort of way that we could just push a button and say, I mean, I know that we can change the IND tag, but specific manufacturers, if I change one chair to be a different identity tag or an IND tag, it'll apply that to every single chair of that model number, regardless of finish. So if there was like a way to select all those on the drawing and then somehow apply a tag to it, like if there's something not necessarily tied to the manufacturer, but that was more like part of CET, for install docs, for example, because right now I locate on a drawing and then I have to take my label and go through and label each thing that's highlighted as CHO1.
So again, kind of a batch command where if it's this part number, apply this label. Or something like that.
Yeah, so not necessarily like the manufacturer specific IND tag, but like that labeling, if there's some sort of, you know what I'm saying? I think
that's something we could definitely do. I think we have all the tools to do that. It's just putting them together.
Well, I was thinking of like the seating manager, like Hayworth has. It's already looking for, if this, then.
Yeah.
And so it would just be, if this, add this, or make it green, or whatever.
Yeah. It'd be cool too if, well, never mind. I'm not even go there.
That's
keep going.
Cool. Too much cool.
Well, I really love what you guys have done, like with the wall schemes, to be able to, select your finish and all that. That's amazing. To take that one step further, like into the windows and doors, if we could apply finishes there as well, that would be great.
Yeah, I agree there too.
And then also to be able to apply like 3D text and images to floors as well as walls.
Okay.
Because sometimes I render my my floor plan, you know, from an aerial view, because I want it to be more dynamic than just a black and white flat plan. But I might want to be able to call out like lunchroom or whatever, have that text in there. Or even sometimes, you know, if you want to have some type of lettering in your flooring with a logo or whatever.
Well, Jody, that's when you create a PDF and you add comments through PDF, and then you save that, and then
Yeah.
Convert it to a G material and paint it on your table.
I've got a million workarounds. I'm asking y'all. And then I think I have one, I might raise my hand again, but right now I have one last thing. In categories, if there's a way to have a category for, say, CET specific accessories or something, because when I turn off accessories, to say turn off my little CET monitors and my CET magazines, my manufacturer's monitor arms are also on accessories category. So if all the CET stuff could be on its own little category, that would be
almost like a FICA category or something, or it.
Yeah.
It's like the category, we got 2 general on categories now, because there was one point where that was 2 split up, right?
Well, it's almost like you need to lock out other people from using the CET categories.
Or just have I think it's solid. Like it can sit in accessories as well, but it should also have CET accessories, right? So that you can just say.
Yeah, we do have the CET accessories, but that might be. We did add a new section for like extension specific accessories with some specific ones in there. With like lighting, marker boards, some work tools, some things like that. And manufacturers can hook into that section if they'd like, for sure.
Okay.
Maybe
it's more of me just asking my manufacturer to not use your accessory.
Change those categories.
Yep, to use some of the new standard ones that we've added when possible.
Yeah. And then you just said something that made me think of something else. But I'll raise my hand if I can remember what it is.
Thanks, Jody.
Yeah, thank you.
If you look at the chat, you know, Johan's probably like turning red and things, because and this kind of goes to a point. So he says if you split by part number, you can select those you want to change, and I think that goes to that idea of there could be ways to do all of these things, but we just don't know about them. They're not easily found. They're not intuitive. So, and especially when it's not consistent between manufacturers. So if you're saying, well, okay, if I'm using Hayworth, this is how I'm going to sort through those, you know, filter through those things. Now, if I'm using Hahn, now I got to think about it, doing it a different way. And so, you know, to have some, and I know consistency is a goal, and it's definitely improving in a lot of ways, but it's kind of like, well, the developers have that tool already in the program, but we don't know how it works, and it doesn't really work in a real world situation. It works in a programming world, and how do we reconcile those two things? Right on, Brenda. Glad you agree with me. Christy asks about a custom shaped viewport.
Yeah, we talked about that in the last session. I've seen someone, a dev, with custom shaped viewports.
I've seen it too, yeah.
I don't know
what's odd is
I've
got my viewport showing up in my model right now.
Oh,
it's a bug.
It's that ellipse. It did it to me.
Yeah, it is in there.
So, Christy, maybe if you want to chat in, like what kind of shapes would you be looking at? Like, do you want round? Do you want triangles? Like, what do you want custom? Like, what would be your ideal solution to that? Custom shapes from Josh. Brooke, I agree, requiring extension developers to be consistent would be great, and they are working on it. Sarah says, can you please move the lights in 3D material tab to the light tab?
I think they're they exist in both. They're the same, aren't they?
It's not one I'm aware of.
I thought they were the same at least.
Anonymous, how about copy and paste from a specific point but continuously?
Isn't that what we were doing?
We had that one earlier.
And the point doesn't have to be that product. Yeah, so that did come up in an earlier session where rather than having the predetermined, like in this one, the center being your point of reference, it could be this thing over here without having to use like the position tool to do that. So that's a popular idea.
Did the I mean, I think that special copy did at least do it repeatedly from the same point. It was the changing points, right? That was the problem, or did I miss
that
something?
one earlier one was to be able to pick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Christy says custom, like how the part tagging works for custom shapes for the custom viewport.
So I actually just looked. I think that might already be in and done for the next version.
11.5.
I've got my 11.5 up and running, and it is an option there. So it might already
Have a
be
little
there.
patience.
So, yep, keep an eye out for the release notes for 11.5, and getting your hands on it in about a month.
Let's see. Some selection. Being able to select all similar parts, like select similar feature in CAD. Rolf says selection is improved in many ways in 11.5. I assume that you mean selecting objects in the drawing.
He actually has his hand raised.
Oh,
right now.
okay.
I could let him chat.
You bet.
Pretty sure that that's in the next version. Similar
Yes.
parts.
Hi, I just came from a dev session where this new selection or advanced selection tool was demoed, and also we saw some possibilities to configure that or to adjust that within your own extension. It looked very promising. I haven't seen it before, but I believe that that is what you are asking for. You could select for like tags, part numbers. You could even write your own queries, more or less. So it looked very powerful. The demo I saw. So I think that I hope that your request is fulfilled, as I wrote there in 11.5.
Yeah, I was gonna say the advanced selection sounds exactly what you're looking for.
And if it's not, next year you come back to this session and you say, listen.
Be angry.
In session 3 last year, you said.
I assume that this functionality has been added because many have asked for it. So
Exactly. Thank you, Rolf.
welcome.
Victoria said she didn't get to ask last session if she has a bunch of items in a spreadsheet like pencil, sharpeners, trash cans, flags, etc., things that aren't in extensions. Is there a way to bring in a spreadsheet that we could add to everything else, and then we could make a CIF file and send it to be quoted? There's a place you can bring in spreadsheets, but the top titles are different than A, B, C, etc., so it doesn't bring them in and says there's an error. So I have not tried to bring in a spreadsheet. What does this bringing in a spreadsheet do when you import it?
Like you can drop a Excel file into 2D, and then you can do it'll display there, and you can manipulate some stuff with it and update it and all that.
Does it put it into the calculation though?
I don't think so.
So, Victoria, tell me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you want it to actually be included in calculation.
Something about catalog creator. She wants to. I got to reread.
Catalog creator.
Is this just to be able to paste that Excel copy into catalog creator? Is that what you're looking to do?
Yeah, Jody says like a pick list, and she said yes. So she does want it to actually like bring intelligence into the drawing.
Interesting. So like
I would-
Excel pick list.
I would assume you would be able to parse that. I don't see why.
Yeah, it's
why
easy
you
to
couldn't.
parse. Yeah.
It would be just like a pick list at that point, right? It would just auto-populate from
Yeah.
the Excel.
Maybe even if like the file has like hyphen pick list on the end of it, it just turns into a pick list as it's dropped or something.
Yep.
And it just would grab the recognized information and populate it into the appropriate spots.
Yeah, because you
Yeah,
can just
like
drag
if
and
you-
drop. So just leverage that.
Yeah. If you just match the columns up with what's in calculation, you could just auto-populate that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Sounds like a good one. Feature request. Let's see. Emily says, when I pull in a symbol and use the make a special command in plan view, it will show the special part number, but then it will eventually revert back to the original part number. So installation drawings won't show the correct part number. And Rolf is wondering if that's manufacturer specific.
Yeah, I think the only way you get a make special is manufacturer specific.
Is that a bug, do you think?
Sounds like it to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like
Because
Sarah's saying it happens to all kinds of different manufacturers. So
So
not
it
sure
might be
if we have.
maybe something with how the abstract support we're providing for
Potentially, right. Maybe the query dialog has something weird.
So I would say keep reporting that one when it happens.
I mean, I think the overall thing here is the query. We hear a lot about the query dialog just needing more, more default support because basically everybody's customizing it to some degree, right?
Looks like maybe Sarah J has something to speak to on this, Olivia.
All right, I will allow Sarah J to talk.
Jody, I'll get back to you. Don't worry.
Yeah, this calculation thing is something that's been happening to me for probably 2 years now, and I can't seem to get anybody to recreate the issue. But I know it happens to other designers as well. And we're able to solve the problem by refreshing the calculations before we print, but it'll happen randomly while we're working, and all of our special numbers will just revert to the original part number. And it happens with project matrix symbols. I've had the problem, and we use Hayworth. I've had Hayworth symbols. So I don't know. It's very frustrating.
I see Adam's in this session, so Adam, make a note.
Well, if it's happening with Project Matrix and Hayworth, it makes me wonder if it is some sort of core bug of some kind.
That's what's making me question everything, but it's part number related, which like almost 100% of the time comes on the manufacturer, right?
But it is with the special, so there's a lot of different things that could be going on there with how it's being stored and things like that. It could maybe also be even the parts are taking so long to load that they don't refresh right away.
It's true.
There's lots of things, but it's something that's worth more investigation for sure.
You've seen it with anybody other than Project Matrix and Hayworth?
I'm trying to think.
Or has anybody else seen something similar with another manufacturer?
I don't tend to make a lot of specials with other manufacturers.
Interesting. Okay.
No.
It kind of goes along maybe with, well, it's graphics versus catalog information, but earlier we had somebody mention that the outline of the old original part sometimes shows up even after you've edited the graphic.
So it sounds like something's happening to the snapper. Where it's
Yeah, that
losing some
happens
info.
too.
Yeah, that one came up earlier. The edit graphic, 2D, like reverting back to the original. Is
Just take specials back to the drawing board, guys. Just 12.0. Look out.
Brand new query tool.
it's such an easy problem to solve.
Well, it sounds so easy, right? Just make it special. Right?
Make it
Just
stop
make it
doing that.
Yeah, make it special, make it work.
Few more here. Johan does say he looked at the board. Custom shape is slated for 11.5.
Nice.
now, if he says that, does that mean like with the release of 11.5, or could that still be like a patch further down the road?
It could be a patch further down the road.
From what
So
I'm
don't get your
seeing,
hopes up, everybody.
well, from what I'm seeing, it's in. I think it'll be the initial release. From what I'm seeing.
Nice.
Okay,
So
cool.
I'm not looking at any patches right now.
Jody says, does anyone else struggle with arcs? They're not friendly. Is it just her?
I assume the arc tools in the
Yeah.
draw tab.
Yeah, and even like the arc walls. I'm just curious if anybody, it literally might be me, but I try to avoid them at all costs, even though they'd come in handy sometimes.
Is it a
Like
struggle?
they're just not super intuitive.
Even
and-
Johan has problems with it.
Can't say that I've ever tried to use the arc wall, but I've used the
Like
arc.
even if I have an arc in my CAD and I'm trying to follow it, but now I'm looking at it and it looks like, nope, there's like 3 points. If there's just a way to like even follow an arc that's already in your CAD or something.
Right. Like a something to trace or something almost.
Yeah. I mean, geometry wasn't my best subject, but it wasn't my worst either.
I know I tend to just like slap something in there and then stretch it around to get it to the way I want it to look.
Yeah. So what I actually raised my hand about was I remembered what I was going to say. If you have a block and let's say you have a monitor arm in your block and then you go to your paper space and you want to hide your accessory, it'll hide that entire block because one item in that block falls into that category that you've turned off.
Yeah, that was being talked about earlier as well. We had some block discussions that brought that up.
Yeah, with categories and blocks, I believe the block takes on all the categories of all the things in the block. That might be something we can do about that, but I'm not totally sure.
That's a tough one to make a decision on, right? What should the block do? Should it inherit all those categories or should it not? And how should that decision be made?
I think each item should be independent. You know, I mean, I guess that's easy for me to say. I don't have to
Well, that's sort of what the block is. The block is sort of making something one, right? So it's very the antithesis of that. You have problems in the same way with elevation and blocks and part numbers and all that other stuff. So yes, this is
because we're told to use blocks because they take up less memory, blah blah blah. But then I usually end up having to go and explode them anyway to make my prints work out.
Interesting. Just to get the interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you using blocking for? Are you using it primarily for the grouping?
I use block a lot for almost anything I can, just so that if I do have to change a tag or something like that, or a finish.
Gotcha.
I mean, even if I bring in a task chair, just in case somebody decides they want a totally different task chair. So I try to use blocks as much as possible.
Interesting. It's something that I think is worth investigating, see what we can do to handle something like this.
Blocks in general. Maybe need a
I mean,
look.
it just sounds like there's a few more problems with them in the office industry than were expected, right?
Yeah, it sounds like we're maybe making too many assumptions around them.
Yeah, because when we go in and we make our paper views, or what are they called? Paper space. I don't remember what they're called. And we've got our electrical, we've got our panel, we've got our component. Yeah, it makes it kind of challenging
to get it to look like what you want it to look like.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another thing too with blocks. When I'm tagging items in blocks, it's goofy. Like if let's say I create a private office typical, and then I tag all those items, and then I create a block. That tagging travels with that block. I can't right now tell you.
Yeah, tagging in blocks.
That was brought up as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I couldn't quite put words to what.
Right.
But I know when it's happening.
Yep.
My hair falls out.
And that one's even a little harder to think about when versus the categories, because what should the tagging do? There really is no clear decision to be made there when you block something with tags in it.
Yep.
Thanks, Jody.
Yep. Thank you.
couple things here about walls. We've got Sarah said, is there an option to draw walls continuously? And then Haley said, any way to get windows to be able to go onto curved walls?
I think for the curved walls, I feel like I've heard of this being worked on at some point.
Yeah, I think it's being.
Windows.
I think we have a project. We have a project for it right now. I'm pretty sure on R&D.
Yeah.
I'm not sure when the plan for that to be released is, but
first you have to figure out how to draw an arced wall. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we just avoid it altogether, but it's something that's on the docket at the very least.
What about drawing walls continuously? So I know that's something where you're
like
basically tracing over a CAD plan. Yeah, you draw this one, then you got to draw this one, then you got to draw this one, and you got to line up the snap points each time you do it to make sure it goes where you want.
I mean, it does seem like a tool we can make. I think in the end we're gonna probably end up doing a bigger overhaul of
walls needed.
Architectural walls. I'm not sure what the plan is for that or when we want to do it, but that definitely seems like a thing that's doable. Yeah. It would work just like the chain dimension, essentially.
Yeah, right.
Wherever you click to end the previous one is the start point for the new one, and yeah.
And Johan said on the blocks, the way to do it would be use the tricky eyeball in the filter. Rather than through categories, I guess you'd filter the view.
Gotcha. Because I think that'll look more at the individual graphics themselves as opposed to the snapper as a whole.
No, it's in the categories. Okay. Let's see. This has come up before. Past years, Haley said, any way we can set up the updates of CET to happen during a certain time, like schedule them, because let's see, with auto restart of program function.
I think this is one of the things that's in 11.5 actually is more user-friendly updates.
Oh, nice.
It's something that we're working on. So with 11.5, we're adding some more information for those updates, so you'll be able to see if this is like a critical bug fix, new feature, major new features, minor new features, major bug fixes, minor bug fixes. So you'll have a bit more knowledge on, if you can maybe wait till the end of the week to do this update versus if you need to do it right now. But I do know we have plans to also look at least into some way to schedule updates more intelligently for you guys.
Well, I know I love it when I'm starting a big rendering and then it starts chugging along trying to download an update too. My fan kicks in a nuclear reactor overdrive. Let's see.
Collaboration, interesting.
Yeah. Can you talk about the future of collaboration? Are we going to get to a gamer-style collaboration in the future?
I don't think. I mean, if gamer as in like running around in a drawing and seeing somebody else running around in a drawing is what you're kind of referencing there, like I don't see that. But I know that there's been, there's a lot. There's a third version that's really being looked at that's going to have some infrastructure behind it and stuff like that. But it's a ways out, and it's a really, really hard problem to solve. So, but it is something that it really has to come because CET's decentralized nature can present a lot of other problems in itself to manufacturers.
Yeah, I know we are working on like collaboration version 2.
Yeah.
Or whatever number we're calling it at this point. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly what the feature set is of it, but it is to make kind of a more robust solution for it. I know that.
Yeah, but I've seen a little bit, some demos of it. It looks very nice. Looks very user-friendly as well. So keep an eye out for that in the future.
I'm kind of a loner and very protective of my stuff, so I don't know how much I want people to do that. Yeah, look for it in 11.5. Let's see. we have. What time does this one get over?
Like 5 or something.
4:50.
Yeah, we have about
Okay.
20
Eight.
minutes left.
Okay. So I'll show another one here that I have done is who has tried to tag something and then remove a tag. So you tag your items, and then you realize, oh shoot, I wasn't supposed to tag this panel over here. That was something else. So then you gotta come over here and you click tag individually, and then you got to remember to look for this little tiny label up here that says remove, and then you can click that, and then you can remove. And did you know you can window to remove too once you've done that? I think. No,
That answers somebody's question from a previous one then, yeah.
So that's weird. It's not removing the tag. Maybe it's not that tag. No, it is because it's green. Huh. Bug report.
I just removed it behind the scenes.
Oh,
but
it's on the
showing-
rectangle. It's surrounded by a tagging rectangle, so
Right,
it's
so it
just
might
getting
be just-
retagged.
Oh.
Yeah, I think that might be meant for like when you tag individually.
Yeah, the rectangle is supposed to just get anything in it.
Okay.
Thank you, Johan.
Yep.
So anyway, well, the solution we liked was to add remove tag to this column here so that it's very obvious and easy to see. Let's see. Got some feedback on that one. Yes, I I tagged it wrong. User error, which is the common thing I hear when I chat into support. Yeah, and then otherwise you have to do like a tag that says not included and then overwrite the thing that you wanted to. Nicole says, I always make a separate tag for omit or whatever and apply it to remove it. So, and then, yeah, use it at the right time. Haley says, any way to set the view settings when in 3D work mode to just show like a shaded version instead of all the finishes and colors? When ready for rendering, can you just turn it on so it doesn't bog the computer?
This is something that manufacturers, they have the control over, and they're starting to, I think, hear this feedback more often because I want to say some of them did add color and have gone now to removing it, and a lot of them just keep it simple until,
So Haley, you're talking about like if I had applied colors to this, you still want to see it as like a grayscale image rather than a color image?
No, I mean, like, you know how in Revit, well, I don't know if any of you guys have used Revit, but in Revit, there's like, you can select the view mode of the 3D when you're working in 3D to show as either wireframe, like all of the components, everything to show as wireframe, like the walls are wireframe, or shaded, or hatched, or something where it's not showing all of the colors and textures and details that like adding the finishes would add to. That way it reduces the amount of loading that your computer has to take when you're in 3D mode. So that way you can just do the work you need to do. Then when you're ready to apply finishes or do like the rendering portion of your process, then you just click the show the realistic version, and then you can do the renderings as needed. That way it kind of moves along, it doesn't boggle down your like CT program or your computer, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. What's supposed to be, I guess, our solution to that is level of detail, right?
Yeah,
and
something like that.
And that's a data thing on the manufacturer side.
Okay.
If it's model based, right? Or if it's something that you're drawing yourself on the programming side, then the programmer has to be creating those levels of detail. In that case, you usually aren't worried about this kind of slowness, though. It's the overly detailed hardware that's sitting underneath the work surface that's still rendering, that's slowing you down.
Is that like project symbols where you can adjust the render quality?
No, it's more like at the bottom when you're into like 3D, how you have a normal architectural CAD tags like that. It's like maybe adding an option where it says
like low res or something.
like low res, or some, I don't know.
We have, like, I think, Chad, you mentioned this earlier. Every once in a while, there's these little dev tricks out there, and there's a dev toolbar that does add some of what you're talking about here, but it doesn't reduce. In our case, it doesn't reduce the complexity of the model.
Okay.
So it's definitely doable, but actually hitting the reducing the complexity of that graphic, that is something that has to be done by the manufacturer, really, because we don't have that liberty to go in and, we could do it, but now we're damaging their data after they've given it to us in programming. We can't do that. So that would definitely be something, push the manufacturer to define proper level of detail so that when you are working in work mode, it is performant as can be.
Yeah, but I'd have some concerns with like a wireframe mode or things like that, because there's a lot of tools that rely on interacting with graphics to like find things, right?
That's true too. Yeah.
So how are we might lose out functionality in those view modes. You might end up flip-flopping quite a bit between them.
At the end of the day, the way we're doing graphics, at least, I don't know if that would help, because you're gonna have to process the mesh in order to lay a layer on top of that that's just more simplified. So that's sort of more, unless that simplified layer is there to begin with, you're not reducing processing.
You might be able to reduce it a little bit because you don't have to like fill in those triangles type thing. You can kind of ignore some of them and ignore materials and things
There
like
might
that.
be some of that, yeah.
So Johan asked what the purpose of that would be. My understanding from Haley is that it would just help to speed things up a little bit, so it's not having to chug so hard every time you move the mouse around.
Right, materials. I was going to say that earlier. Materials typically don't modify the processing unless they're like 4K giant files that are having to be loaded, right?
Like when you download something from the internet to
yeah,
apply it to a special, and you get the warning.
Right.
You live dangerous, and you say yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Catherine said on the 2D, what about a solution to show black and white only? I know that's kind of an ongoing thing, right?
Yeah, I know we have a render option for things like that. So,
and there is like in the pay-per-view now, you can do the black and white, but I know sometimes for clarity purposes, people
want it in plan view.
Instead of all the color, especially like if I do a Hayworth work surface and it's walnut, it turns it dark brown, then you can't see the text very well. So then unless you go in and create your 2D and make it black and white, I think that's
well, some manufacturers have gone back and changed this. I've been on projects where they've gone back after users said, we don't really like this color, go make this white, and they do that. So, definitely be pushing. If your manufacturer is doing this, you don't like it, voice it, because you're not the only one, I guarantee it.
Yeah. Sarah said in the chat, there are other benefits to seeing the different views: wireframe, hidden, shaded, full rendered, conceptual, mainly how the user sees it. When she's designing in Revit, she loves seeing through one item to know what all is included in a typical.
Yeah, see, that's tricky because this is the data, and they don't hand that kind of data over. But I would love that kind of capability with the data.
Yeah, but how many times I've seen things like, oh, here's a pedestal, and you look inside it and it's empty, right?
Yeah, he's right about colors.
It's all facade.
But when you're trying to see the details, you got to have that data there.
Yeah, which adds the normal complexity onto even the model itself. So, because now you have to draw things that you wouldn't normally see. So,
Brenda says, is there a way to lock a drawing on CET as in someone finishes, locks it, and their version of CET or software does not change the file?
Not
No.
at the core level, because that's really something that a manufacturer has to decide to do at that stage, because they can't lock other manufacturers' abilities to make parts.
And I'd be really scared about locking a drawing down, because what if a pricing update comes in and now you don't have that, so your quotes could be completely wrong.
It's not uncommon. This is a thing on the material handling side that they all really need, but that's because at that sale it's locked, it's done.
You just have to have a bright red watermark on it that says archive only or something like that, not current or something. But and I think yeah, she says it gets to a point when you don't need it to change, or when you need it not to change. And I think, Eric, kind of like what you were just saying with the material handling, where, how do you, and I don't know if it's as simple as just rectangling the whole thing and making a lock, locking objects, or, then you can't easily change it. Johan asks if she's talking about the drawing itself or pricing.
Yeah, because you can turn off the pricing calculation.
Nicole says, I would love to lock the calculations because every time I add a part tag general markings, it includes it in that quote.
I do want to give a 5-minute warning. We're getting close to 5 minutes left.
Wow.
This one
All right.
flew.
Yeah, it
Time
did.
flies.
Let's blow through some of these here. So, Brenda, not sure how encouraged you should be by that answer, but maybe try locking, see if that gets you part of the way there. Let's see. Josh says, can we hide the outline for part tagging when things are filtered off?
So like that box.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Interesting. That makes sense. I mean, you're filtering off something, and if that tag has been filtered off, you wouldn't really want to see it if there's nothing showing in it.
Yeah.
Jody says, I'd love for group to work when I'm in single select, not just multi-select. This is another one, just like blocks, where I hear it quite a bit in the different webinars and things that I'm in, that grouping could use some attention.
I'm not sure. So group, what do you want group to do in single select?
To work.
I can
Yeah, I'm
allow
trying to say
Jody
this
to
one
talk. All right, Jody.
Yeah, so here's just one example. Let's say in a training room, I want my chairs to stick to my table, but I don't want to make a block because I want the tables to snap together so that they populate ganging brackets or whatever. A multi-select on, the next time I go to grab that table, it selects everything that table is attached to, not just that table and chairs.
Right.
So then I end up going to single select and select the table and the two chairs anyway. And if I group something, it's because I want it to be grouped together, not only grouped together when I have multi-select on. Like, for example, when I put a wire basket underneath a table and a desktop power mod or something, and every time I move that desk, I don't want to have to strategically grab all three of those items.
Yeah, and not basically grab the fourth one that's right next to it.
Single select is too single, right? It needs to at least respect grouping, essentially.
Yes, exactly.
So we do this for some things already, like panels do it for their end trims and their junctions. That's something that the manufacturer has to implement for those sort of things.
In this case, so that wouldn't work, right? Because don't you have to be lonely removed to do that?
No.
Oh.
You can control what's in your selection when you single select.
Oh no, I knew that, but I was just I thought
you
it
just
was
override single select to just select more things.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the programming side of it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Lonely remove does it automatically.
Yes, exactly. Lonely remove invokes that automatically. That's what I was realizing. Yeah.
Yep.
Because I just feel like if I group something, it's because I want it to be grouped.
Yeah.
And then one real last thing, talking about selecting, when I use my rectangular light, and I, turn it off so that you don't see it from above. And then I go into that office and I want to select something. I always select the light. Then I have to select below.
I do that same thing, yeah.
I wish it was kind of like walls. Like if you're not in the light tab, you can't select.
Yeah, locks it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be a really good feature for that.
Yeah.
Brenda had her hand up. Brenda, do you want to ask something or add something here?
Oh, yep. I think she removed it, but I will let her talk. Brenda, you are unmuted.
Hi.
You've been adding a lot in the chat, so
Yep.
you deserve it.
I'm sorry. No, I was in the last session and I had so many comments and I wasn't able, I wasn't quick enough to send them. That's why I joined this one. So yeah, I already had a purpose. So I know that I'm going back. I mean, you guys are talking about a lot of things, and I think this session is so helpful. Like I cannot believe that I did not join something like this before, because this is what I've been wanting for a long time. And to go back to the question that I was saying is like, I understand that I was asking if there was an option to lock the drawing or the calculations view. And I understand that there's a concern about pricing changes, but taking the feedback from people that actually price things and quote them and send them out to be sold, we need the files to not change at some point. And I know that you already went kind of over that, but my general notion of the situation is I feel like programmers need to talk a lot more with designers and with specifiers, because there are certain things that are needed and kind of non-negotiable for us to feel comfortable with the software. Otherwise, we can't be certain that what we are presenting or sending as a file is correct unless we translate it into some other software that stays locked. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like there's
Yeah, definitely.
like kind of there's a lot of minutia to go over, and it all stems from that one concept.
It almost needs to be like a button you click to say ready for order.
Yep.
And then no more changes are available. But then the next time you open it, you could unclick that and make your changes and make it a working drawing.
If you need it, or even have a warning. I just posted in the comments, have a warning, something like, oh, this pricing was set in this date, or this drawing was set in this date. So you have a visible warning that that drawing is not automatically updating anymore, but you have the option to change that versus, oh, I sent my file to my coworker and she's seeing a different thing because she hasn't updated and says her CET, or she hasn't, it just makes things so much more difficult to make sure that things are correct.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm sorry to cut this short. Brenda, thank you for your question.
No, that's okay. Thank you so much.
Yes, we are at 4:50 now, and I want to just wrap up real quick with thank you to our folks that answered questions today, everyone who asked awesome questions. Just a reminder, you can earn a CEU for attending the session today. Just use my initials, OA, for Olivia Adams, and that drawing that you can find in the CET Experience briefcase. Otherwise, thank you for joining us today and this week.
Yeah, thank you very much. And if you didn't get your answer, submit it as a feature request.
And
thanks, everybody.
Thank you, and be sure to head over to the closing.
Yep, bye.
Thank you.